Hello mga kapamilya, busy ang inyong gandang lola dahil nag-playlist sa computer at nangisda sa akin dalawang cellphone at saka lahat ng mga subscriber ko na sumusuporta sa akin ay susuklian ko kayo ng dikit at play at hindi kayo nagkakamaling dikitan ako dahil masipag ang gandang lola mag-play kung sino man yung nag-play sa akin. So, maraming salamat sa inyong suporta dyan at huwag niyong kalimutan mag-comment dahil dyan ako kumukuha ng mga taong sumusuporta sa akin na piniplay ko din. So, ngayon nakikita niyong busy ang inyong gandang lola sa pagdidikit at pagpi-play ng inyong mga channel. So, sa lahat ng mga suporta dyan, sa mga bagong kaibigan, pwede kayong mag-join sa aking button kung gusto nyo lang, walang sapilitan. At sa mga nangangailangan ng watch hour, so, pwede kayong mag-join dyan. All day playlist kayo. 24 hours. Pag nagpa-member kayo sa akin. So, sino pa ba yung makagawa dyan? Diba? 24/7 kayong naka-play. Everyday yan, naka-clear history at i-play ko kayo ng napakaraming gadget ang aking gagamitin dahil para mabilis ang inyong watch hour. So, ano pang inaantay nyo? Click the join button sa aking channel at lagi ko kayong ipi-play sa mga nangailangan ng watch hour. So, maraming salamat sa mga suporta. Bye for now. Anyway, while you guys watching my video, I have some stories. Between the two buddies are fishing, but they haven't caught any all day. Then another fisherman walks by with a huge load of fish. They asked him, "Excuse me, but where did you get all those fish?" The other fisherman replies, "If you just go down the stream until the water isn't salty, there are a ton of hungry fish." They thank him and go on their way. 15 minutes later, one fisherman says to the other, "Fill the bucket up with the water and see if the water is salty." He dips the bucket in the stream and drinks some. Nope, still salty. 30 minutes later, he asked him to check it again. Nope, still salty. 1 hour later, they check again. Nope, still salty. "This isn't good," the fisherman finally says. "We have been walking for almost 2 hours and the water is still salty." "I know," says the other, and the other bucket is almost empty. So, you guys laughed? Or did you guys get it, the joke? Anyway, I have one more jokes. A man returning home a day early from a business trip got into a taxi at the airport. It was after midnight. While en route to his home, he asked the cabbie if he would be a witness. The man suspected his wife was having an affair and he intended to catch her in the act. For $100, the cabbie agreed. Quite arriving at the house, the husband and cabbie tiptoed into the bedroom. The husband switched on the lights, yanked the blanket back and there was in his wife in bed with another man. The husband put a gun to the naked man's head. The wife shouted, "Don't do it! This man has been very generous. I lied when I told you I inherited the money. He paid for the Corvette I bought for you. He paid our new cabin cruiser. He paid for our house at the lake. He paid for our country club membership, and he even pays the monthly dues." Shaking his head from side to side, the husband slowly lowered the gun. He looked over the cab driver and said, "What would you do?" The cabbie replied, "I'd cover his ass up with that blanket before he catches a cold." So, did you guys get it, the jokes? So, I have one more jokes. The title was The Password. So, my 100-year-old grandma asked me to set up a security camera so she could see who was stealing her clothes at her assisted living facility. So I brought over a wireless camera and started to install an app on her iPad for monitoring. I needed her Apple ID to download the app, so I asked her what her password was. She poked around in her notebook and said, "Required." It was the wrong password, so I told her, and she looked up at me and said, "I know that is right. I remember it said, your password is required." Hope you laugh again. Okay, I have one more. 3 men were discussing aging at nursing home. 60 is the worst age to be, said the 60 years old. You always feel like you have to pee, and most of the time you stand at the toilet and nothing comes out. "Ah, that's nothing," said the 70 years old. "When you're 70, you can't even crap anymore. You take laxative, eat bran, you sit on the toilet all day and nothing comes out." "Actually," said the 80 years old, 80 is worst age at all. "Do you have trouble paying too?" asked the 60 years old. "No, not really. I pee every morning at 6. I pee like a racehorse on the flat rack, no problem at all." "Do you have trouble crapping?" "No, I crap every morning at 6:30. With great exasperation, that 60 years old said, "Let me get this straight. You pee every morning at 6 a.m. and crap every morning at 6:30? So what's the tough about being 80? 80 years old replied, "I don't wake up until 7. A truck driver stopped at the roadside diner one day to grab some lunch. He ordered a cheeseburger, a coffee, a slice of apple pie. Just as he was about to eat them, 3 big hairy bikers walked in. The first biker grabbed the trucker's cheeseburgers and took a big bite from it. The second biker picked up the trucker's coffee and downed it in one gulp. The third biker ate the trucker's apple pie. The trucker driver didn't do anything or say a word as all his went on. When they finished, they just paid the... A blind guy enters a bar. After ordering a drink and sitting there for a while, the blind guy yells to the bartender, "Hey, you wanna hear a Blondie joke?" The bar immediately becomes absolutely quiet. In a husky, deep voice, the woman next to him says, "Before you tell that joke, you should know something. The bartender is Blondie, the bouncer is Blondie, and I'm a 6 tall, 200-pound Blondie with a black belt in karate. What's more, the fella sitting next to me is Blondie, and his weightlifter. The woman to your right is a blondie, and she's a pro wrestler. Think about it seriously, mister. You still wanna tell the blondie joke? The blind guy says. Nah, not if I'm gonna have to explain it 5 times. Husband and wife. A husband and wife are sitting quietly in bed when the wife looks over at him and asks a bold question. Wife, what would you do if I died? Would you get married again? Husband, definitely not. Wife, why not? Don't you like being married? Husband, of course I do. Wife, then why wouldn't you remarry? Husband, okay, I'll get married again. Wife, you would? With a heartful look at her face. Husband, make audible groan. Wife, would you live in our house? Husband, sure, it's a great house. Wife, would you sleep in our bed? Husband, where else would we sleep? Wife, would you let her drive my car? Husband, probably. It is almost new. Wife, would you replace my picture with hers? Husband, that would seem like the proper things to do. Wife, would she use my golf clubs? Husband, no, she's left-handed. 20 years ago, a woman awoke during the night to find that her husband was not in bed. She put on her robe and went downstairs. He was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee in front of him. He appeared to be in deep thought, just staring at the wall. She saw him wipe a tears from his eyes and take a sip on his coffee. What's the matter there? Why are you down here at this time of night? She asked. Do you remember 20 years ago? When we were dating and you were only 16? He asked. Yes, I do, she replied. Do you remember when your father caught us in the back seat of my car making out? Yes, I remember. Do you remember when he shoved that shotgun in my face and said, either you marry my daughter or spend 20 years in jail? Yes, I do, she said. He wiped another tears from his cheek and said, you know, I would have gotten out today. A man and a woman were on their honeymoon after a long time. Very funny jokes. So a man and a woman were on their honeymoon after a long and very happy courtship. On their honeymoon, they decided to take their horses through the beautiful mountains, passes of Europe, as the horses were crossing a small stream. The woman's horses stumbles and just less the man's wife. One across the stream, the man dismounts, walks over the horse, and stares into its eyes and says, that's one. The man remounts his horse and they continue their ride. A bit further down the path, the woman's horse stumbles when stepping over a wall tree. The man dismounts, stares the horse in the eyes, and boldly states, that's two. He returned to his saddle and they moved on. As the afternoon sun began to set, the woman's horse once again lost its footing on the mossy slope. The man dismounts, moves to the woman's horse, and helps his wife out on the saddle. Moving to the front of the horse, he stares it in the eyes and firmly says, "That's 3." Removes a pistol from his vest and shoots the horse dead. The woman, quite upset at seeing the beautiful horse killed, says to her husband, "That's terrible. Why would you do such a thing?" The man stares at his wife and firmly says, "That's 1." A man meets an elderly man in a bar. They talk, they connect, they end up living together. They get back to his place, and as he shows his around his apartment, she noticed that one wall of his bedroom is completely filled with soft, sweet, cuddly teddy bears. There are 3 shelves in the bedroom with hundreds and hundreds of cute, cuddly bears carefully placed in rows, covering the entire wall. It's obviously that he's taken time to loving arrange them, and she's immediately touched by the amount of thought he's put into organizing display. There were small beers all along the bottom shelves and medium-sized beers covering the length of the middle shelves and huge, enormous beers running along the top shelf. She found it strange for an obviously masculine guy to have such a large collection of teddy bears. Divide equally. A couple whose marriage was on the rocks south of advice on their pastor. The pastor encouraged them to patch up their quarrel and keep their vows, but the couple was adamant. "Well," said the pastor, "you know the consequence if you insist on a divorce. Remember this, you must divide your property equally." The wife flared up. "You mean the 4,000 I have saved up, I must give him half my money?" "Yes," said the pastor. "He gets 2,000 and you get 2,000. What about my furniture? I paid for that." "Same thing," answered the pastor. "You split it equally." There was a challenging gleam in the wife's eyes. "What about our 3 children?" The pastor was stumped at first, but then quickly came up with a Solomonic solution. "Go back and live together until your 4th child is born. Then you take 2 children and your husband takes 2. The wife shook her head. "No, I'm sure that wouldn't work out. If I depended on him, I wouldn't have the 3 I've got." A rich millionaire decided to throw a massive party for his 50th birthday. So during his party, he grabs the microphone and he announces to his guests that down in the garden of his mansion, he has a swimming pool with 2 crocodiles in it. "I will give anything the desires of mine to the man who swims across the pool." So the party continues with no event in the pool until suddenly there is a great splash and all the guests of the party run to the pool to see what has happened. In the pool is a man and he is swimming as hard as he can, and the tails comes out of the water and the jaws are snapping, and this guy just keeps on going. The crocodile are gaining on him, and this guy reaches the end and he gets out of the pool tired and soaked. The millionaire grabs the microphones and says, "I am a man of my word. Anything of mine I will give. My Ferrari, my house, absolutely anything for you. as the bravest man I have ever seen. So, sir, what will it be? The millionaire asked. The guy grabbed the microphone and says, "Why don't we start the name of the bastard that pushed me in?" An 18 years old girl tells her mom that she has missed her period for 2 months. Very worried, the mother goes to the chemist, buys a pregnancy kit. The test result shows that the girl is pregnant. Shouting, cursing, crying, the mother says, "Hoda, pigs that do this to you. I want to know." The girl picks up the phone and makes a call. Half an hour later, an EMG Mercedes stops in front of their house. A mature and distinguished man with gray hair and impeccably dressed in an Armani suit steps out of the Mercedes and enters the house. He sits in the living room with the father, mother, and the girl and tells them, "Good morning. Your daughter has informed me on the situation. I can't marry her because of my personal family situation, but I'll take responsibility for my actions. I will pay all costs and provide for your daughter for the rest of her life. Additionally, if a girl is born, I will bequeath her 2 retail store, a townhouse, a beachfront villa, and a 2 million bank account. If a boy is born, my legacy will be a couple of factories and a 4 million bank account. If twin, they will receive a factory and 2 million each. Finally, for causing such social embarrassment and distress to you both, I would like to offer 1 million in compensation, my private yacht and gold cost penthouse to be at your disposal at my any time. However, there is a miscarriage. What do you suggest I do?" At this point, the father, who had remained silent the entire time, places a hand firmly on the man's shoulder and tells him, "You wrote her again." A man on a flight to Chicago suddenly found himself having an urgent need to use the bathroom. He headed over to the men's room, nervously tapping his foot on the floor of the aircraft. Each time he tried the door, it was occupied. A stewardess noticed his predicament and told him, "I'll let you use the ladies' room, but on one condition. Don't touch the button of the wall." The man breathed a sigh of relief. While sitting on the toilet and this attention drift to the buttons on the wall. The buttons were marked WW, WA, PP, and ETR. Making the mistake that so many men make in disregarding the importance of what a woman says. The man let his curiosity get the best of him and decided to try the button anyway. He carefully pressed the first button marked WW, and immediately warm water sprayed all over his entire button. He thought, "Wow, this is strangely pleasant women really have it made." Still curious, he pressed the button marked WA, and a gentle breeze of warm air quickly dried his hindquarters. "This is amazing," he thought, "men's room having nothing like this." He then pressed the button marked PP, which yielded a large powder puff that delicately applied a soft talc to his rear. Well, Naturally, he didn't resist, and the last button marked ATR, and then everything went black. Then he woke up in the hospital. He panicked and buzzed for the nurse. When he appeared, he cried out, "What happened to me?" The last thing I remember, I was in the ladies' room on the plane. The nurse replied, "Yes, I'm sure you were having a great time until you pressed the ATR button, which stands for Automatic Tampon Remover." A flat-chested young lady read an article in a magazine that stated Dr. Bumbutu in Africa could enlarge your breast without surgery. So she decided to go to the Dr. Bumbutu to see if he could help her. Dr. Bumbutu advised her, every day after you shower, rub your chest and chant, "Scooby-Doo, Dooby-Doobies, I want bigger boobies." She did this faithfully for several months, and to her utterly amazement, she grew to a terrific decap rank. One morning, when she was running late, got on the bus, and in a panic realized he had forgotten her morning ritual. Frightened she might lose her lovely boobs if she didn't recite the little rhyme, she stood right there in the middle aisles of the bus, closed her eyes, and said, "Scooby-Dooby, Doobies, I want bigger boobies." I just sitting nearby looked at her and then asked, "Are you a patient of Dr. Bumbudu?" "Yes, I am. How did you know?" He winked and whispered, "Hickory, dickory, duck." A super hot woman arrived at the party. While scanning the guests, she spotted an attractive man standing alone. She approached him and smiled and said, "Hello, my name is Carmen." "That is a beautiful name," he replied. "It is a family name." "No," she replied. "As a matter of fact, I give it to myself. It represents the thing that I enjoy the most, cars and men. Therefore I chose Carmen." "What is your name?" she asked. He answered, "BJ Tits Sin Golf." A new Blondie hostess began her first day. The route they were flying required that they make a stop in another city for the night. Soon after their arrival, the captain showed all the flight attendants to their rooms. The next morning, the pilot was preparing everyone to leave, and he noticed his new flight attendant was missing. He knew which room she was in at the hotel and called her up, and he was wondering what happened to her. She answered the phone, sobbing, "I can't get out of my room." "You can't get out of your room?" the captain asked. "Why not?" The hostess replied, "There are only 3 doors in here." She cried. "One is the bathroom, one is the closet, and one has a sign on it that says, 'Do not disturb.'" A man, his wife, and a good-looking stranger are stranded on the desert island. The wife quickly loses interest in her husband and begins flirting with the good-looking stranger. The three start to build a watchtower. The stranger offers to take first watch. While the husband and wife gather driftwood on the sand, the stranger yells, "Hey, no sex on the beach. Get back to work." The husband yells back, "We're not having sex." Later, the stranger yells out to them again. The husband yells back and corrects him. This happens several times during the stranger's shift. Finally, the husband takes his chef in the watchtower. His wife and the good-looking stranger make passionate love on the beach. The husband on watch exclaims, "Wow, it really does look like if from up here."
And I thank God I'm breathing, and I pray don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more, there'll be no more war, and our children will play one day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day. Start about, we not lose, 'cause we all lose, but they're feed on the souls of the innocent, blood drenched pavement. Keep on moving, though the water still raging. And in this place, you may lose your way, your way. You might drive you crazy, but don't let it slip you away. No way. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't wanna fight no more, there'll be no more wars, and our children will play one day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day. One day is how we change, should be about the same. Stop with the violence, down with the hate. One day we'll all be free and proud to be